And it is the Saturday Coffee Klatch with Heather Lofthouse and yours truly, Robert Reich. And Heather, it is so lovely to see you. Another terrible week, but you are the highlight of my terrible week.
Wow. Bob,
yeah,
ditto.
Yeah.
I don't really believe you. Or it's even lower than I thought.
No, it's been I don't know how you feel, but every time I wake up and I look at the news, and probably I shouldn't do this, but I'm shocked. I just everything. I'm prepared. I'm steeled for the worst, but it continues to shock me. This administration, this regime.
Which wake up? I mean, I'm waking up so many times.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've said I'm a 7, but I think the 7 is the outside shell, and inside the shell is like a sweating, crying 3.
Anyway.
Okay.
So what are we going to talk about today? What are the highlights of the week that you would like to explore?
And some lowlights. I have to do it. Okay, so people are getting fired up. Let's talk about that. Trump's terrible tariffs, where the budget stands.
People are getting fired and they're getting fired up. Yeah. Both.
Yeah, well, exactly, says the former Secretary of Labor. So, yes, let's get into it. Let's start with today is a day of peaceful protest, and 250,000 people at least are getting out in all 50 states. So that's good to see, right?
That's very, very important. I think, this word solidarity that is thrown around all the time. It's very important for people's morale, for just a sense of steadiness, to know that there are many other people out there who share our values, that there are huge numbers of people who are as upset and as disoriented and depressed as we are about what's happening to this country and around the world. So that's one reason why these protests are so important.
And that reminds me of Cory Booker this week, who stood up on the Senate floor for 25 hours and 5 minutes, beating Strom Thurmond's record, who had spoken out against the Civil Rights Act of 1957. So this was, it had some important larger pictures. Sorry, I just totally screwed that up.
I think it was incredibly important for Cory Booker to do this, because it just showed that speaking out, and he did it. People are not paying attention to what he said. He actually, I watched part of it, and it was such a direct assault on Donald Trump that I think he gives other people courage indirectly. By the way, Strom Thurmond. Did I ever tell you my story about Strom Thurmond?
I don't know. If you did, I want you to retell it. I'm going to lie and say no.
Well, I'll do it very, very briefly. We got into an elevator. This was years ago. I was Secretary of Labor, and he was there, and he said, Mr. Secretary, he was about 100 years old. He said, Mr. Secretary, I like your suit. Do they make that in an adult size? He was not joking. I can't
believe that, Bob.
No, it's
What was your response? I bet you handled it beautifully.
I just said, I don't know, Senator, and then I left the elevator. He was such a jerk. That's not a nice thing to say about somebody who is passed, but he really was.
But that is a horrible thing to say to someone. I mean, you can't talk about a bully.
He was a bully, and he was a racist.
Among other things. We know this. Hence, he was on the floor for 24 hours talking racistly. But the other thing about Cory Booker, I think it's important to note that he did this it went live on TikTok. When he hit the 24-hour mark, there were already 100 million likes, but last I looked, it was over 350 million likes. And I think his tone is so important. It wasn't anger. It was a tone, I think, of unity, and also sadness. I mean, it was kind of solemn. And so I do think it had that unifying effect. And people were looking at it, even though some people online were saying, oh, it was so self-serving. And, oh, is he a politician? It turns out he is a politician.
Not only is he a politician, but he's a very good politician. And coming up with this idea, I'm sure a lot of people in his staff said, oh, you can't do it. It's just going to be crazy. It's going to be look like a carnival act. But what's important is that it did make the point. It made the point that there is a sense of outrage about what is happening in this country. and you can talk for 25 hours or 26 hours about it, and you can get huge numbers of people. I mean, how many did you just said? 255 million people?
350 million likes, at least,
350.
on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, that's extraordinary numbers. Talk about a demonstration. Well, this is important. This is important for people to know. It's important for people to see. It's important for people to assimilate. So
in other
kudos.
big numbers, kudos to Cory Booker. In other big numbers, tariffs. I mean, where do we begin? I'm so excited to be having coffee with you in particular. You've talked about tariffs for years.
Well, listen, here's the thing that is just so staggering. Since over this week, American corporations have lost over $3 trillion in their valuations. I mean, Heather, $3 trillion in the valuations of American corporations.
And you're not even talking about the stock market, and you're not even talking about other things.
Well, we're talking about
alone.
Their market valuations totally going down by $3.1 trillion. This is so much more than Trump is talking about saving money so he can give his big tax cut to the wealthy. I mean, this is a gigantic problem. It's a problem for American companies. It's a huge problem for retirees who've put their money in the stock market. It's a problem for anybody who's put their money in the stock market. It's just it shows how stupid, just incompetent this administration is.
The tariffs. Okay, so he comes out with this piece of cardboard, right? And it has all the numbers on it, where they've used ridiculous one numerator, one denominator. Ta-da! Here's our number, all the same across all different countries. Same calculations. I mean, this process is, it's a terribly designed economically speaking, right?
Heather, the word is bonkers. Now, bonkers is a good word. It's used in England a lot, in the UK, but it's bonkers. There was no process here, as far as I can tell. I think they must have just thrown numbers up into the air, and
or into ChatGPT.
Maybe, the Chat GPT. They said, well, if a country has this much trade deficit with the United States, what should be the reciprocal, quote unquote, reciprocal tariff on that country? It's absurd. And it's going to hurt a lot of people. It's going to hurt a lot of people in this country because they're going to pay huge amounts more. The typical American family, the best estimate I've seen is about $4,000 this year. The typical American family, $4,000 more in terms of what it buys. But it's a regressive tax because the poor family, the family that is working class, is going to pay a much larger percentage of its income. That $4,000 means a much bigger percentage of income than it does to Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. You couldn't have contrived anything that is crueler and stupider. I mean, really, cruel and stupid.
But
he gets the award.
Why is he doing it?
That's a very, very good question. Here's what he says. He says he's doing it because he wants all of these companies, the world global companies, to make stuff in the United States. And it's going to be cheaper for them to make stuff in the United States than to make it in China or wherever they're making it and try to send it to the United States, because sending it to the United States means you have a big tariff. The problem is, this is so ludicrous. A lot of companies, are not going to do this. It's simply not worth the money that it's going to cost to create a new factory in the United States, especially when you don't know what Donald Trump is going to do 3 months from now or also, 6 years from now.
I was going to say the timeline to we're going to build a factory tonight.
Yes, you have to. Yeah, that's right. It takes time and a lot of effort and a lot of planning to build a factory. You're not going to do it if you think circumstances may change, and they will change, especially with this administration. Second, secondly, you're not going to get great jobs out of just building a factory. The reason in the 1960s and 70s and 80s we had terrific factory jobs in this country is because labor unions were active, and they gave workers a great deal of leverage in bargaining for higher wages in those factories. American workers don't have that leverage any longer. The percentage of the workforce unionized in American manufacturing is very, very tiny. And besides, you're going to have so much technology, and you're going to have artificial intelligence. You're going to have so much kind of machinery in those factories. I'll be surprised if there are any jobs that are being created. The whole thing is just nuts. Can I just say?
Yeah, nuts or bonkers?
It's bonkers. It's bonkers and nuts. Bonkers and
so
nuts.
you talk about Smoot-Hawley, and the last time we had huge tariffs, it led to disastrous results in the economy. There was not a war going on that we are responding to. This feels self-inflicted, but not only that, it feels like it's been telegraphed. I mean, we say we look at the news and we're surprised, and I agree with that. But these people, the Wall Street, right? Isn't their main job to assess risk and to build models to look at where things could go up or down? I mean, how did we not anticipate this?
Well, this is sort of another 2008 in terms of a Wall Street meltdown, or could be. But no, I think you put your finger on it just now. There was no national emergency here. I mean, and this goes for everything Trump is doing. You know, Trump
is the national emergency.
He is the national emergency. You know, his mass deportations using a part of a law that comes from, from 1798, when you had a war on. It's a kind of a wartime act. And then all of these tariffs that he's applying, he's using another wartime emergency act to give him justification to do this. This is all wartime emergency stuff. And Heather, I don't know if you've noticed it, but I didn't notice that there was a wartime emergency before Trump took office. I mean, he's creating chaos and he's creating emergency, but there was not an emergency. There was not chaos. There is now.
And it's the world order. It's so much larger than us. And trade is a two-way street. I mean, this is not going to end well.
It's already a trade war. I mean, this is the war. This is a war. You want a war? We have a trade war. China has already retaliated, putting huge tariffs on American goods, mostly farm products that are coming into China. Well, what's going to happen to the agricultural sector, the Midwest? I mean, they're going to need a lot of help. And then at the same time, you have Europe, and Europe is going to put some kind of reciprocal tariffs on us. There's no end to it. This is Smoot-Hawley. You said it before. This is 1930. That Smoot-Hawley, that tariff, which was a generalized tariff, what Trump is doing, really made the Great Depression much worse. It hastened the Great Depression. Now, I'm not predicting a Great Depression, but Trump wants an emergency. He loves emergency. An emergency gives him more power. This is all about his power.
So it's affecting, as you said, the world order, the rule of law, democracy, Wall Street, Main Street, our collective consciousness, our sleep patterns. But does it feel, I mean, it does feel like there is a response that's beginning to happen. You've said when these big catastrophic things happen, people have to look at how the system was broken in a way that's different than how they might have looked at it as it was broken without all of this.
That is the silver lining I keep going back to, that Trump is breaking everything in a way that makes people go back to first principles and say, wait a minute, who's the economy for? Is it for the CEOs? Is it for the billionaires? Or should it be for me And if it's for me, what kind of economy do I want? And what kind of economy should I support? And it's forcing Democrats to reevaluate what they're doing. It's even forcing some Republicans. I don't know if you watched this week. I think one of the biggest news items was that several Republicans in the Senate pushed back against Trump's tariffs against Canada. Canada. Terry, how are you penalizing? Why are you penalizing Canada? It's almost like a joke. But Republicans in the Senate are not taking it as a joke. They are starting to mobilize against Trump. And in all sorts of ways. I think the demonstrations today are very important. Cory Booker, very important. AOC and Bernie Sanders have been doing, and they're going to be doing more of it.
Their next stop is 1 week from today in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, that's right, and it's important for them to do this anti-oligarchic tour because people have to understand that the American oligarchy, the billionaires, are really running a lot of America. Their big money is polluting our politics. So again, back to basics.
One thing you and I like to do is debunk myths too. Was having these trade deficits so catastrophic? I mean, they're trying to spin and say, the trade deficits, we had to get in and handle these.
To debunk that is very easy. All trade deficit means is that another country is selling us more than we sell to it. Now, if another country wants to keep our dollars and continue to sell us more than we sell to it, in one way you might say, well, that's pretty generous of that country. It's not clear that a trade deficit is all bad. A trade deficit in those terms might be quite good. The imbalance is just in the words. If a country is going to continue to sell us more than we sell to it, eventually, I suppose, the value of the dollar could suffer. Let's not assume that all trade deficits are bad just because they're called deficits.
I know. And then, of course, we have to look back because history repeats itself. We know this all too well now. In Trump 1.0, his first term, he had the trade representative. Fine. The trade representative had a chief of staff. That chief of staff is now the trade representative today. That's Greer, Jameson Greer. And we have to recall that there was a study that came out that showed, not surprisingly, that certain corporations who requested exemptions from tariffs in Trump's first term then, of course, got the exemptions because which ones got the exemptions? Who were approved out of thousands applying? Many who had given to the GOP. So
this is a very important point, Heather, that all of these moves, whether we're talking about the trades and tariff, or we're talking about how Trump is approaching universities, or how Trump is dealing with big law firms. He's basically extorting concessions from them, and those concessions could next week or next month be turned into what? Some money. He's already, the big law firms are already saying, okay, we're going to give you hundreds of millions of dollars of pro bono work. What does that mean? You see, Trump deals in power and money. Those are the only languages he understands. His entire economic policy, the entire economic policy of the Trump administration comes down to three things. One is a big tax cut for the wealthy, and they think they're going to get it because they put so much money into the Trump campaign, and they continue to put money into Trump businesses, so they want that tax cut, and that's what they think they are owed, and Trump is certainly trying to do that. The second thing is cuts in programs that people need. Social Security and Medicaid and Veterans Affairs. These programs are hugely important to people, and Trump is just laying off enormous numbers of staff for each of these programs, so the programs cannot function. And the third piece of all of this is the tariffs. And you put them all together, the tax cuts for the wealthy and the program cuts that are going to hurt working people and the poor, and the tariffs that are really going to be a regressive tax on working people and the poor. And what do you get? You get a huge redistribution, hidden, secret, upward from average working people to Trump's cronies. That's what this is all about.
And the misinformation that's out there saying that is not what's happening and how this is going to get so much money back into the pockets of the working class is incredible. The videos that are out there going around that also Trump is putting out on Truth Social.
Well, it's propaganda. I mean, let's talk about this. Is agitprop. This is stuff that was developed in Nazi Germany. They knew the big lie. If you keep on telling people over and over and over, they will eventually believe it, unless there is somebody on the other side who has a bigger, or at least as big a megaphone. And this is why it's so important, what Bernie and AOC are doing, and Cory Booker and others, to just get the truth out.
Right, right. So can we talk a little bit more about where the budget stands? So the Senate has said, here is our version of the budget. It has fewer cuts, and now we're all going to vote. So what are we looking for? What's going to happen?
Well, there's something called reconciliation.
Tell us.
Reconciliation is a process. I mean, it's arcane, and now it feels kind of arcane. You can get a bill through the Senate without a filibuster, without needing 60 votes for cloture. And that's what the Republicans are trying to do, and what Trump wants to do to get his big tax cut through. And reconciliation is a process that they're going to try to do with this tax cut on. But the question is, what does the parliamentarian of the Senate think about this? You have to go through a lot of hoops to get reconciliation.
Tell us about the parliamentarian. We don't talk enough about the Senate parliamentarian.
We don't talk because nobody thinks about the Senate parliamentarian. The Senate parliamentarian usually doesn't have any power at all. But in something like this, the parliamentarian really is very important, because the parliamentarian can say to the Republicans, no, you can't use reconciliation unless you do X, Y, and Z. And that's why the Republicans everybody's looking at the parliamentarian right now. Every 3 to 8 years, the parliamentarian becomes very important.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have this budget happening. I read something in the New York Times. So you've talked about this, that we just talked about some magical math around the tariffs that was kind of not sophisticated enough, to put it nicely. Now we have different math happening here with the budget, where everyone's saying, tax cuts what are we talking about? Can you talk a little bit about the tricks they're trying to pull as it relates to the way they're spinning the budget?
Well, this is also important in terms of the process in the Senate and in the House, because you have something called a budget. And the House and the Senate, do something that's called scoring, which means basically they are looking at how much a tax cut, in this case, is going to cost over the next X years. What Trump did for the first tax cut is say, okay, the window we're going to look at costs is only 10 years. And this is going to cost $4 trillion over 10 years. Didn't look beyond 10 years. Didn't say, okay, over 15 years, over 20, 30, 40 years. No, just 10 years. And then we come to the second Trump tax cut. And what the Republicans and Trump want to do is say, you have to use as the basis, as the status quo from which you measure the future cost of the big tax cut, you've got to use as the baseline where we are right now. In other words, forget this $4 trillion. $4 trillion is going to evaporate. The new cost of the new tax cut is going to be $4.5 trillion. So the total cost of both tax cuts, no, never add them together. The Republicans say. I mean, this is insane. This is insane.
There was this great New York Times article in The Upshot. It was a couple weeks ago. And so these two reporters, Margot Sanger-Katz and Alicia Parlapiano, asked different economists to explain how this works for us. Okay, so there were two that I liked that were particularly helpful. Okay, imagine it's like this. Your daughter's graduating from college. You've been paying for her education, so you're expecting to have a big improvement in your budget. However, after graduation, your daughter announces that there's no need for her to go find a job, since covering her expenses is just a continuation of current policy.
That's right. Just a continuation. It's just the status quo. So just keep on paying me.
Right. And that was Michael Peterson who did that one. And then this one is Jessica Riedel, who said, so it's like this, basically. Imagine last year, despite being deeply in debt, I bought a $100,000 sports car. So next year, buying another $100,000 sports car is not irresponsible because I'm merely spending the same amount as I did last year, see? And if I purchase only a $70,000 sports car, then I should be congratulated for reducing my spending by $30,000. I mean, what that's what it is.
These show how crazy these ideas of scoring, these Republican ideas are, but also they take no account of the deficit, the budget deficit, and the debt. I mean, they are going to be huge. And again, Heather, just to put this in context, Trump is saying that the United States is going to get so much money in from these tariffs that we can afford to essentially spend a lot of money on these tax cuts. But that can't be right. I mean, the mathematics doesn't work. No mathematics does it. These are, I don't know if you remember, in the Reagan administration, they talked about magic asterisks. Do you remember that phrase?
I do. I remember it being referenced. I was too young at the time.
Well, David Stockman, as in charge of the budget, he said that, well, these are magic asterisks. Don't worry about the asterisks in this budget. It's just the same thing. This is even more magic.
Right. Don't look at the footnotes.
And it doesn't work. And some people say, okay, Trump is a businessman. He must know what he's doing. He's a failed businessman. He failed at every business he's ever entered.
That's it. It's so important. And we from Inequality Media Civic Action put a video out about that. And we got such a huge response on TikTok by people saying in the comments, I actually didn't know this. This is news to me, that kind of thing, because he is a good con man. The
greatest con men in history are able to not only lie, but lie in such a way that people forget their own memory. I mean, they forget that things that are already they've registered. I mean, everybody knows, they must know that Trump was a failure, but they don't really register it. Everybody knows that the first tax cut was a huge failure in terms of nothing trickling down to average working people. Remember he said $4,000 would trickle down to the average working people? Well, no, most of the benefits of the tax cut went to the very wealthiest people in the United States, and nothing trickled down. And he's doing the same thing again.
Okay, speaking of, this has been the first Coffee Klatch we've had in months where we haven't mentioned, and I have to ruin it, Elon Musk.
Oh.
Can we talk about what happened in Wisconsin this week? You take it away.
Well, the big deal. I mean, Elon Musk, he sunk a bunch of his money. I mean, a rounding error.
25 million.
To somebody who is that's right, a rounding error to somebody who's the richest person in the world. He sunk it into this race for the justice, the Supreme Court, the person who's going to be the swing vote on the Supreme Court, and he lost, and the
Brad
Democrat
Schimmel.
or the liberal won.
Susan Crawford.
And Susan Crawford won by a big margin, 10 points. which is a very, very big margin, and particularly if you've got all that money on the other side, it turns out that Elon Musk himself figured into the election. A lot of people in Wisconsin, and bless you, Wisconsinites, you said, no, if Elon Musk is trying to rig this election for Schimmel, I'm not going to vote for Schimmel. I'm going to vote for Susan Crawford. And that's what a lot of people did. I think Elon Musk, the odor of Musk is going to become such a negative, and is already such a negative political odor that a lot of candidates are going to say no.
So the odor of Musk, yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting to see people say, well, he was only coming to D.C. for 6 months anyway, but he'll still have, there's been a change this week that has been fascinating to watch. And it was a blow to him. I mean, 10 points, there were record-breaking turnouts in so many different counties across the state. You saw that New York Times image of how everyone moved left to the blue. I mean, all the counties did.
Every county in Wisconsin. Actually, Tuesday was a very important day also in Florida because the Republicans were counting on getting both of these special elections. They did, but by very tiny margins. I mean, margins that are much smaller than the margins that Trump took these districts by,
right.
Which means that the entire Republican Party ought to right now understand that not only is Musk a huge liability, but there are no coattails with Trump. He is also becoming a liability.
Right. It was these two ruby red districts in Florida, and the Democrats overperformed, which was terrific to see. And the margins by which the Republicans won were way less than Trump's, 30 points over in November. I think they were 14, something around, half that. So that was fascinating to see.
And Heather, this was all before Trump, his tariffs and the meltdown of the stock market. And I mean, can you imagine if those elections were held next Tuesday?
I know it. Oh, it's so horrific watching it all, Bob. It really is. It's terrible.
Wait a minute. Can I just say something? Before you say it's terrible, I agree with you, it's terrible. But going back to the first point you made at the beginning of our discussion, it reveals, all of this terribleness reveals to many people who did not see what the oligarchy was doing in America. Many people didn't see the consequences of having so much wealth in the hands of so few people. Many people didn't see the money that was corrupting and is corrupting our politics. Now they have no excuse not to see it. They see it.
And there will be a reckoning, you've told us, and this feels like the beginning of a response that we're watching. And it feels good to see other people paying attention, feeling fired up. So kudos to everyone who's keeping the fight up for democracy and our public services, right?
Yes, and many people, I just want to say many people who are watching, many of you out there, you are demonstrating, you are keeping, you're jamming the White House and the Capitol switchboards, you are protecting vulnerable people in your communities, you are being more activist than you've ever been in your lives. And I salute you, and as I'm sure does Heather. It is because of you that the tide is beginning to turn.
That's it. Someone sent me, so Val Kilmer, who was a beloved actor, died this week. Many people saw that, obviously, and mourned his passing. And someone sent us this clip, which was funny because it's your son, Sam, talking about growing up with you as a dad and what it meant to grow up with a Secretary of Labor as a dad. And one of the perks was getting to go to a movie premiere. Can we watch this? Because it's actually kind of funny to hear him talk about you. Thank you for letting us do it.
When we were in Washington, the few trappings of that I really appreciated were Hollywood pieces. Like, we went to the premiere of Batman Forever. For this story to make sense, you have to understand that, all I understood about politics is what my dad brought home. He was Secretary of Labor for Clinton. And I knew that Newt Gingrich was the enemy.
Okay.
That's what I knew. So it was after the premiere of Batman Forever. And someone says, Bob, to my dad, And Dad turns around and there's Newt. So he turns around and says, "This is my son, Sam." And I fold my arms and I turn around.
Wow.
People have traced that back to now the divide between.
Yeah, he started partisanship.
It all happened at Batman Forever.
Do you remember that screening?
Yes, I do, and that was the beginning of Sam's activism. It may be the end of Sam's activism too. I was embarrassed. I mean, I could not. I was Secretary of Labor. I could not turn my back on Newt Gingrich. But there he was. At the age of 9, Sam did.
So good. Well, thank you for letting us play that.
And Heather, thank you. You are just a font of energy and wisdom and clarity, and I really appreciate you as my partner in crime here and in Inequality Media Civic Action.
That is so lovely of you. Thank you
Well,
for saying it.
it is true. And for those of you out there, I just want to thank you again for your activism, your tenacity, your willingness to go through all of this with us, because it's not easy, and that's saying it in a very nice and modest way. Let me also hasten to thank Michael Lahanas Calderon and Naomi Bradford for their enormous, very important help in getting this Coffee Klatch to you, and the entire staff of Inequality Media Civic Action that continues to make sure we get the truth out.